I'm going to walk through the Atomos Ninja TX and try to give you a clear picture of whether it actually solves the problems most of us run into when we add an external monitor and recorder to a camera rig. If you're still on the fence because you've heard the hype, seen a few flashy demos, or worry you'll end up spending a lot of money on gear you'll barely use, this is the conversation you need. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. First off, the biggest hesitation people have with any monitor-recorder combo is the question of, will this actually make my shooting easier, or will it just add another layer of complexity? The Ninja TX sits between the camera and the operator, so you're trusting it to be both a reliable screen and a solid recording engine. In practice, that means you want a display that stays bright enough on a sunny location, a touchscreen that lets you focus and expose without hunting menus, and a recorder that can keep up with the high bitrate codecs you're already paying for in your camera. If you shoot a lot outdoors, weddings, documentaries, or any run-and-gun scenario, you'll immediately notice the 1,500 candelas per M brightness. It's bright enough that you can still read exposure numbers under midday sun without squinting or pulling a shade over the screen. The 5.2-inch IPS panel also holds color fairly consistently when you tilt it, which matters if you're trying to match a look across multiple cameras on a day-long shoot. I tested it on a cloud-filled afternoon, and the image stayed legible even when the sky was directly behind the subject. That kind of brightness is a practical win. You're not constantly fighting the sun for a clear view. Now, about focus. A lot of creators worry that an external monitor will just replicate the camera's LCD without adding any real confidence. The Ninja TX, however, gives you a true touch-focused interface. You can tap where you want the focus to lock, and the overlay shows a focus peaking highlight that's easy to spot even in low-contrast scenes. I ran a couple of low-light interviews with a fast lens at f/1.8, and the peaking stayed visible, which helped me nail the focus without having to rely on the camera's sometimes jittery autofocus. That said, the monitor doesn't replace a dedicated follow-focus system, so if you need subframe precision for high-end narrative work, you'll still want that extra gear. It's a solid confidence boost for hobbyists and solo shooters, but not a complete substitute for a proper focus rig. Low-light performance is another common worry. The Ninja TX doesn't change the sensor's capabilities, but its 1080p display can show you a cleaner image than many cheaper monitors that simply upscale. When I switched from a bright daylight scene to a dimly lit bar, the screen maintained detail without crushing shadows. The built-in waveform and histogram were also accessible with just a few taps, so you could verify exposure on the fly. Those tools are often hidden behind deeper menus on other monitors, which can cause you to waste time fiddling while the action is happening. Stabilization is not built into the Ninja TX itself, but the way it mounts matters. The included monitor mount and sun hood let you position the screen low and close to your eye line, reducing the need to tilt your head up and down while you're walking with a gimbal. I paired it with a handheld gimbal and found the extra stability of the mount meant my rig stayed balanced longer, especially when I added a larger battery pack to power both the camera and the Ninja. That said, the unit adds a few ounces of weight, so if you're on a drone or a super light rig, you'll feel the difference. It's not a deal breaker, but it's something to weigh against the convenience of having an integrated recorder. Speaking of power, battery confidence is a frequent point of contention. The Ninja TX runs off standard 12V power sources, and you can feed it from a mount battery or even a USB-C power bank that supports PD. In my test, a 100WH mount gave me roughly 2.5 hours of continuous 4K 60 recording, which aligns with most camera setups. If you're doing longer takes, you'll need to plan for an external power solution, but the device does give you the flexibility to swap power sources without restarting the recording. That flexibility is a practical advantage over some competing units that lock you into a proprietary battery. On the recording side, the Ninja TX is where the all-in-one claim becomes tangible. It accepts the full suite of codecs that Atomos preloads, including ProRes RAW at 8K 30. You won't need an external recorder if you want to capture that high-resolution RAW footage directly to a CFexpress Type B card. The CFexpress slot is fast enough to handle the data rates, and I was able to record 8K RAW without dropped frames on a test camera that pushes 300 megabits per second. For most indie creators, the 8K capability is future-proofing. You can shoot 4K now and have the option to re-wrap from A.